Hello, hello. This is your girl, Miss Amelia, with So Exceptional Miss Amelia. I'm here today while I'm working on this um, amendment, my last one. Well, making corrections, rather. And before I continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. While I'm here, and while I'm making these corrections, I'm going to talk about the IDE Act, which is the Individuals and Disabilities Education Act. I'm going to explain exactly what it means, where it comes from. It was something that originally came about. It was enacted by the Congress like a long, long time ago, like 1975. Like it was enacted a long time ago to make sure kids that had disabilities have the opportunity to still get education at the public school system the same way the other kids did for free, just like the other kids did. Um, the law constantly gets changed. This particular law does get changed very frequently. Um, I think it might have been like 2004, but it was like finalized and published in like 2006. But they added like a part B for school age children, and in 2011 they added a part C for like babies and toddlers. Um, it's like I said, this law was put into effect like back in 1975, so it's been a really long time that this law has been in effect. Um, you, as a parent or anybody, has access to the IDA Act. I'm going to link it in the description below, but it's on the government websites. It's on the National Center for Learning Disabilities website. Like it's on all of them. But the different parts of the IDA are, first of all, I'm going to fully explain what it is. It's a federal law. So the Individuals with Disability Education Act, that's what IDEA stands for. It's a federal law. And it makes it to where, mandates rather, makes it to where schools meet the needs of kids that have disabilities, um, and provides them a free education opportunity, like I said before, for public education. Free, appropriate public education. FAPE, FAPE is the abbreviation or whatever for it, acronym for it. In the least restrictive environment, meaning in the environment that's best for that particular kid based off their needs and what they need. Like I told you, it started in 1975. That's when it first was passed. They updated again in 2004. They updated again in 2011. There's three parts. Well, it's way more than three parts, but there's three significant parts of it. Like I said before, there's part B, and that's for groups from ages 3 to 21. Part C from ages 0 to 2. And then part D is like national activities. Part B, it provides legal requirements and funding to ensure students that are in school age have access despite their learning disability, and they get the support that they need from schools. Part C, it provides services for and funding for infants and toddlers. So those would be like if they're in like daycares and receive childcare and things like that. Even if they don't, that way their parents can still get like some type of assistance and help for them educationally, um, and developmentally and stuff like that. Part D, oh, sorry. Oh, wait. It provides funding and like different type of grants and stuff to support like state personnel development, technical assistance, information, decimation, like technology, information and support services for parents. That's what that does, and that's part D of it. Um, there's a lot of kids that is affected in various different type of ways, but that's pretty much what. It's not the only thing that it is, but that's like a touch on what it is. Um, And as a parent, I just let you know, like, when you go into those IEP meetings, and this is coming from a teacher slash case manager, because as a teacher, I am considered a student's case manager and I'm the responsible person for writing the IEPs. Me as a special education teacher and case manager for my students, I make sure to ask all the teachers that student have. I make sure to include the student and I ask the parent when I'm making the IEPs. And I do that to make sure everybody is involved in what this kid needs. Even the child, especially like I have junior high kids. So I make sure, like, you know what I'm saying? What do you feel like you struggling in? You feel what I'm saying? I know what they struggle in, but sometimes it is a difference. You get their input because it might be some other stuff that they're not confident about that you feel like they might be doing okay in, but they're really not. Mentally, they might be not confident about it. Um, Eligibility and identification. There are some people I know that for years they've been trying to get their kids in, but their kids IEPs and they can't because then they get tested, they don't qualify. There's different types of ways that kids can qualify for services. They go by determining if your kid can qualify for services based off the IDEA. They have to fall in certain categories. There are 13 specified disabilities or disability categories rather. And your child has to fall in one of those for them to be able to be considered to get an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, right? Um, like having a specific learning disability, other health impaired, um, speech language. I can't think of any of it. It's like speech. It's something with speech. I can't think of it off the top of my head because I'm just thinking about this stuff off the top of my head. This is just like there's so many of them because, like I said, there's 13 categories. Um, Sometimes a kid can have some of these things going on though, and they not be considered for IEP, but they're considered for a 504. And I'll get into that on another day. Um, in the Section 504 or the Americans with Disabilities Act, that's something completely different, which I can get into that on another day. But in IDEA, specific learning disability, a lot of kids have that. Some of them have intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, speech language disabilities, things like that. But like specific learning disabilities, which is a more common one, which is SLD, that's what it would say on your child's paper. It's like a brain based disorder that affects the kids' like ability to like read, write, or do math. Like so that can be like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalalia. My pronunciations for these are like horrible. It's like stuff like that. Um, it can also be like, let me think, have a way to say this. It's not only those few, but those are like some of the main ones that typically is. Other health impaired, a lot of times would be students that are ADHD. So kids that have ADHD, they would be put in as other health impaired. And then there's some behavior disorders that fall into that category that would warrant for a kid to have an IEP. And if your kid has dyslexia, but it's still a certain point scale they have to go under. If your kid has a disability, but they have very good adaptive skills and all this stuff like that, that affects that too. And then they won't be eligible for an IEP. And sometimes your kid or their IQ might be like 1 point too high. And if that kid's IQ is 1 point too high, then they won't be eligible. Um, it's very nitpicky and it's not a black or white way that kids not identify, but qualify rather for an IEP. Um, when the kid does have like specifically like SLD, which is like specific learning disability, you have to implement a comprehensive evaluations. And in a lot of those cases, kids that has SLD, they have stuff included on their IEPs for math, reading, and written expression, a combination of them all. And the LRE will also be something that's on the IEPs, and that's like least restrictive environment. And that's basically like we're servicing the child, they're getting the extra help they need, we're adjusting or modifying, giving them accommodations and stuff like that. But we're making sure that we're putting the kid in the least restrictive environment, meaning the environment that keeps them with their peers the most based off their particular needs. So some kids are in a 80% type of thing where 80% of the time they're in a regular education or general education class environment, and only 20% of the time they're in a special education environment. But then you have a good portion of the kids are in the a good portion of them are in the let me find it. A good portion of them are in the 40 to 79% range, meaning they might have 2 to 3 class periods where they're in a special education setting, and the other class periods, because I'm thinking about junior high school, okay? Then the other class periods, they're in a regular education setting. Then you have some kids that are less than 40%. Those kids would be like they would be the more self-contained style kids because they would be the kids where they only go outside of their classroom for like PE, art, like stuff like that. They don't go out. They get all their They're all like their social studies, science, math, English. They get all their core subjects within the special education setting. Those kids would be considered the self-contained kids because they're predominantly self-contained rather. And self-contained, like I said, means they're getting all of their education in the special education setting, and they only go outside of the classroom to get for, like I said, PE, art, music, stuff like that. Maybe even like an elective, like like we have agriculture at our class, so like an agriculture class or home ec, like they or JAG, they get out for stuff like that. But other than that, they're inside the special education setting. Um, Let me see, and that's like inside the rate class, less than 40%. That is the lowest one typically for kids that's in the public school setting in our school. Because if they're less than that, the under that it starts to go be like with the like the state school stuff, and we're not a state school, it's just a public school. So yeah. Then you have some kids that are homebound as well, and they only come to school for like 1 or 2 hours in a special education setting. They go home. It's so many different variations, but that's like a breakdown. When I say least restrictive environment, that's what I mean. And then I talked about FAPE earlier, which is FAPE. That's the acronym, and that's free appropriate public education. That's what that means. Um, and eligible kids can receive that, meaning they qualify for an IEP. And that the FAPE is put into action with the IEP. So if your kid qualifies for free appropriate public education due to their disability or their identification, their eligibility and identification, then they are IEP is rather than put in place for your child. And it's created by the team. It doesn't supposed to just be one person. Like me personally, like I am the person responsible for typing it up, but I'm supposed to take information from the team, like the SPED administrator, the person that does evaluations, the parent, the regular education teachers that the child have. I'm supposed to take all those different people's information and take notes and compile that stuff together in order to make an IEP for that specific child based off the evaluation, based off the parent comments and parents' observations, evaluations, based off the teacher stuff. It's based off all of that stuff that an IEP is compiled. And it's touches based on their academic, developmental, and their functional needs. And it's something that gets done every year. So, and it can be amended at any time. A lot of parents, it might be stuff in your kid's IEP and you feel like, well, I don't want my kid doing this, or this is not working for my kid. Your kid's IEP can be amended at any time. If you feel like as the parent something else is going on, you feel like as the parent your kids needs to be reevaluated or something like that, you can call and set up a meeting, and that can be discussed and potentially like reevaluate your child and figure out other stuff. Like it can be. Um, and you're supposed to really receive regular progress reports at least for a year. Like our school does it every quarter. When you get your kid's report card, you also get a progress report, and we mail them to our parents. Um, but that's just like a touch base on it, and then like their IEP also includes like psychological services, social work services, counseling, parenting counseling and trainings. All that stuff can be included in that. Their physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of this different type of stuff. Like I said, the counselors, all the stuff, like all of that stuff, social skills, all of that stuff is can be included in your kid's IEP, depending on how they identify when they get tested. Um, Procedural safeguards is something you, as a parent, are supposed to receive all the time. You're supposed to receive that from the special ed department at the school district that you're at. It gives you like a notice of your rights, the participation on the IEP team, access to educational records, giving informed consent for an evaluation, due process rights, stay put rights. Like it gives you all the stuff. And as a parent, when you receive an IEP, you're not required to waive it. A lot of times you're in an IEP meeting and they'll say, hey, if you sign here, you can go ahead and waive it. You don't have to, instead of us waiting 10 days to apply it, we can go and start the IEP now. If you waive it, you as a parent, you do not have to sign that immediately. If you want to ask them for a copy to look at that and take it home before it's official, you can. And you can go through and you can process it and you can really look at it and see if you actually want the stuff that they put in there to be done. If they're doing something at the school for your child and it's not in the IEP and it's affecting your child's services, you can say something about that. You don't have to just take that stuff lying down. But I'll go into that other stuff later. Like I'll go into like a full breakdown of procedural safeguards for parents on a later date. And I am going to include, like I said, I'm going to include a little brief little link for parents that gives, matter of fact, I'm going to provide the actual link for the actual IDEA and a quick little link where you can learn the law about it really quickly. I'm going to include it for y'all in the description below so that you can dive into it more. But I hope this was helpful to anybody, because I know with some people, like, they don't understand stuff about IEPs. And it's not really clarified to them. Not for real. Not in a way that they can understand. And that's why I was trying to break it down and put it in a way that y'all can understand, so that you understand as a parent or a guardian your rights, your child's rights, the laws behind it and the meaning behind the stuff. Because sometimes you get thrown around stuff, the PLEP. I was looking on the PLEP today and da 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 da. But if you don't know what the heck that means, you're not going to know that the PLEP is the present level. Like that's not some crap you're going to know. Or the FAPE, or like I said, all this other stuff, you're not going to know what that crap means if you don't regularly deal with that stuff. And so I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with someone if you feel like it could be helpful to them. I see you guys in the next video. When I break something else down, I probably break down in the next video. I'll break down and dive more into the procedural safeguards for parents, because my goal is to make it to where y'all parents really understand like what rights you have. You're supposed to receive the procedural safeguards from the school district that you're at. Okay? Just letting you know. But I'll break the procedural safeguards for parents down in the next video. Bye.